Trail cams can capture some truly incredible footage of animals in the wild. But what happens when they spot something so bizarre it can't be explained? From deer interacting with alien objects to several coyotes fighting a single raccoon, here are 30 disturbing trail cam videos that no one saw coming. The following footage comes from a nature reserve in Queensland, Australia, where a poor wallaby found itself full of ticks on its ears. But while the people at the reserve didn't intervene, since it's not a pet, something else might. The crow scooted up to the wallaby, appearing to drink water, but its sights were set on the ticks. Whether it was actually there to help the poor animal, or just thought the ticks looked shiny and attractive, that's another question. The crow eating the tick was already incredible, but this story is not over yet, because as it turned out, the crow really liked these things and wanted more than one. In August 2021, a California man was having opossum problems in his backyard. However, when he planted a night vision camera to capture the culprit, he witnessed the most fascinating and brutal thing he had ever seen. He saw a coyote rush into his backyard and attack the opossum. But while the predator thought it had scored its dinner, the opossum was operating on another level by playing dead to survive the attack. Of course, playing dead wouldn't have been enough for the opossum to escape. After all, that's just food for the coyote. So this little guy secreted the scent of a decaying corpse to fool the predator. And succeeded. August 2nd, 2021, a couple from Michigan captured something totally mind-boggling on their trail cam in the woods because not only was it not an animal they'd ever seen before, but the way it moved almost made it look human. The video quickly went viral on social media, with people speculating it was a skinwalker hiding in the woods. However, there was more to the footage than just the little peek from the tree. This creature was aggressive. Whether it was real or very well done footage, well, that's up for debate. Nature can be brutal, but sometimes it can come up with some very unexpected twists as well. This family of turkeys, for instance, triggered a trail cam in July 2021, but things weren't as calm as they appeared. The family of turkeys scurried to the tall grass, totally unaware of what was about to happen to them because, as it turns out, a hawk in the sky had its sights on them. But the encounter didn't unfold as you'd think. It turns out turkeys are a lot tougher than most people give them credit for. Beavers are fascinating animals in the wild, pulling off feats that no small animal should be doing. But these little critters can do a lot more than just building dams, and this is a perfect example of just how smart they are. Somehow the beaver knows exactly where to cut the tree, so much so that it even makes a face cut and a back cut. But more importantly, it waits so it can hear the tree and make sure it gets out of the way. This beaver is a master at its craft, cutting into the tree to make sure it remains stable while it weakens the core. And once it's time for the thing to tumble over, the beaver executes it with perfection. Herons are absolutely brutal with their food. So much so that sometimes, if they don't have enough to eat, they don't hesitate to eat their own kind. And that's exactly what is about to happen in this nest as well. To be fair, a lot of birds kill their young if food is in short supply or the young is behind in development. But this one's particularly brutal because none of these herons are adults. They're just chomping on their youngest brother. However, there's more to this than meets the eye. After all, the mother has to protect her children, right? Well, it turns out that even that can sometimes go out the window because this adult heron does not care about her nest at all. In November 2023, a trail cam in the woods captured something truly fascinating. It started with a bunch of deer around a feeding spot calmly going about their day, but little did they know that things were about to ramp up. Decades of hunting have conditioned animals in the wild to always be on edge, making sure they're not in the crosshairs of someone hiding in the distance. So even a hint of something is enough to warn them, which is exactly what happened to these deer. They sprinted off, thinking someone had shot at them, when in reality it was one of them who accidentally stepped into the pool and broke the ice. The following footage comes from San Angelo, Texas, where a wildlife trail cam spotted a group of raccoons gathered around a campfire. Except things weren't as peaceful as they appeared, because a coyote pack was on the prowl. With all its friends abandoning it, the poor raccoon was alone, surrounded by coyotes eager to feast on it. But don't underestimate a lone raccoon, because while this looked like a dire situation, this little guy knew what it was doing. Despite their numerical advantage, the coyotes were cautious, knowing how dangerous a lone raccoon can be. Even more importantly, though, the raccoon was ready to take the fight to the predators and do everything in its power to survive. And that's how the little guy won this battle. Animals do all sorts of weird stuff in the wild, so much so that sometimes they do things that makes you question whether they can experience emotions and joy like humans, and this squirrel is a perfect example of that. Caught on a trail cam in November 2022, the little squirrel is jumping around the area for seemingly no reason at all. Yet people think it's displaying emotions of pure ecstasy because of all the fall leaves around it. Of course, other people think the squirrel's eaten a mushroom, which may have caused this behavior. But as far as we can tell, this is normal squirrel behavior, and this little guy was just very happy. In 2014, researcher John Kitchen was working on grizzly bear behavior in Glendale Cove when he captured some truly fascinating footage as one of these beasts spotted his GoPro camera and decided to put on a show for everyone. Whether the bear thought the camera was just a shiny thing it could play with or it didn't want to be filmed, well, that's another story. The real fascinating thing was the bear's ability to grab the camera and interact with it in a meaningful way. The beast carried the camera for several minutes, taking it around places while it was still filming. And somehow, amidst all this, the camera remained intact, providing some of the most incredible footage we'd ever seen. The following footage comes from the Wolf Conservation Center in South Salem, New York, where a wolf enjoys the calm winter sitting in the snow when its plans are interrupted by none other than its own sister. Much like humans, animals have a playful side to them, so much so that sometimes they find some strange ways to annoy their siblings. And well, this wolf has found the perfect way to make sure her sister doesn't get a moment of peace. But while this is already annoying enough to the resting sister, the invading wolf's about to make things even worse for her. No matter the species, one thing is universal. Siblings love annoying each other. A wolf's howl has to be one of the most iconic sounds in the wild. But most people have never experienced it like this before, because thanks to a trail camera in Canada, we have clear footage of what it's actually like. Most wolves howl to assemble the pack, alarm others at a den, or even locate each other during a storm. And some of these get so loud they can be heard over 100 yards away. However, the most impressive thing about this particular wolf's howl is the way it sustains the tone and volume of its voice, and in many ways, it almost sounds like a siren. There's been a lot of paranoia recently about aliens coming to Earth and trying to communicate with us, so much so that people have been seeing floating orbs, or UAPs as they call them, all over the place. And well, this one's no different. Captured near the Tule River area in California, the footage shows a strange glowing orb zipping across the area. Unlike most other UAP sightings, however, this one's far closer to the ground, so much so that even a deer notices it. The object moves around almost like it has no weight. But that's not even the best part. The fascinating thing is that it's strange enough for several deer to gather around it. So what happens when one of them tries to kick it? In July 2024, a trail cam in the woods captured something no one thought was possible. A creature that had returned from extinction. But here's the kicker. There was more than one. Actual dinosaurs were caught running around the forest in Congo, and the crazy thing was they looked exactly like the raptors in the movies. Was it computer-generated imagery, or did we actually discover these Congo raptors in the wild? Sadly, all signs point toward this footage being someone's fun project. In January 2012, a man went back to check out the footage his trail cameras had captured over a few days in the woods. What he found scrubbing through the video, however, was utterly disturbing. He could see a strange glow in the woods, almost as if someone was walking through with a lantern in their hand. But here's the scary part. Whatever this being was, it wasn't human. A normal white-tailed deer would run for its life after hearing or seeing a human in the woods. Yet these animals not only stayed at their spot, but were almost drawn to it before going back to eating. November 13th, 2023, a trail camera in Ontario, Canada captured a buck near a pool of water. But something was different about this big guy, because as it turns out, this whitetail was actually coming off a week of increased activity during its rut. The buck was exhausted from the rut, so much so that it could barely breathe and stand on its legs. But while it appeared to be holding itself fine after finding some much-needed rest, things were about to go south for this guy. Of course, the buck could have sat there and rested for a bit, but such is the brutality of nature that it just had to get up and keep going, despite its condition. Speaking of nature being brutal, this little chick has been left unattended in its nest, and the situation is bad because a crow has just landed next to it. But here's the deal, this isn't just any nest. This is an eagle's nest. In normal circumstances, a crow wouldn't dare go up against an eagle. If anything, bald eagles are the ones known to kill and eat crows. So this big guy is about to get some revenge on the eagle. The crow needs to be careful though, because if the eagle gets a whiff of what's happening, it's not going to let the crow get away. But the crow is smart and knows exactly what it's doing. January 7th, 2021, a trail cam in Ontario, Canada captured one of the rarest sights in the wild as a buck that was about to shed its antler walked right in front of the camera for everyone to see. This white-tailed buck had been given the name One Side after it broke off its right antler about 6 months before. So it had been walking with a single antler all this time, and it was finally time to make things even. This process doesn't hurt the buck, and the antlers start growing right back in the spring. Much like other owls, the barred owl is also nocturnal and extremely hard to see during the day. And even if there is one flying around the area, usually it's well camouflaged, which makes this trail cam footage that much more exciting. Turns out even barred owls love a bath sometimes, and this one's having an absolute blast in the water, flapping its wings in broad daylight for everyone to see before taking flight. This would have been normal if it was just here for a dip. However, as it turns out, this particular barred owl really loves this spot. So much so that it visits the same body of water several times a day. A trail cam captures one of the most bizarre things ever recorded as a bear walks into the frame and starts behaving strangely. Upon closer inspection, though, you'll realize that this big guy has something dangling out of its backside. That may look like a rope that's somehow stuck in the bear's body, but it's actually a real tapeworm that's invaded the poor guy's body. What's worse is that despite its distress, the bear just can't get rid of it. The footage is obviously disturbing, and someone really needs to step on the tapeworm so the poor bear can be set free. But again, nature is brutal, and if it can't get rid of the parasite, the bear's just gonna have to live with it. The following footage comes from Canada, where Sven the horse is not feeling great at his home, so much so that he appears to lie down in pain inside his stall. But don't worry, because you're not ready for what's about to happen next. Turns out the poor guy was just full of gas, so much so that he just lays on the ground and lets it rip. Of course, that's normal for most horses, but Sven isn't normal. He just keeps going. In total, the horse rips gas for over 30 seconds, which, let's be fair, is not only unbelievable, but has to be some sort of record. And once done, things go back to normal. Trail cams are meant to be small and inconspicuous so wild animals can be themselves and not spot them in the wild. But sometimes even that's not enough, especially when the animals really hate being filmed. This particular camera was spotted by a pack of wolf pups in Minnesota who somehow managed to break its straps and then went on the offensive, turning the camera into their mortal enemy. Most trail cams wouldn't have survived a second of this attack, but this trail cam was a real fighter, fending off 3 wolves trying to bite into it at once. But of course the wolves weren't going to stop trying, were they? March 30th, 2008. A trail camera at a game reserve captured one of the strangest things ever seen on camera as a quote-unquote animal made several trips to the lake during the night. While the video from the footage wasn't clear, the sound was, because this animal made sounds unlike anything else in the wild. What was more fascinating, though, was the fact that this creature was all alone at night and kept returning to the area. It looked like an anteater, or even a pangolin, yet it sounded nothing like those two. So what exactly was this mystery animal? In 2023, police were called to the woods after a hunting party discovered human remains in what seemed like a Bigfoot shelter. However, it was only when they looked at the footage from one of their trail cams that they realized that they were being watched. Turns out the cops dodged a bullet that day because merely minutes after they just returned from the area, the legendary monster itself decided to show itself in its full glory. Who knows? If they'd stayed there a little more time, they could have been the next set of human remains in the Bigfoot shelter. Animals fight over food all the time in the wild, but how many people can claim to have seen massive eagles duke it out over fish at the river? The sheer speed at which these events unfold is staggering, so much so that it looks quick, even in slow motion. But even when one eagle snatches food from another's talon, there's always another eagle waiting to pounce. This raccoon thinks it's just hit the jackpot after finding an unattended nest to snooze in. But little does it know that it's bitten off more than it can chew, because this isn't just any nest. This is a great horned owl's nest. The owl is so quick with its attack that the raccoon has no idea what just happened. If anything, it sits there in shock, processing its next move. But as it's about to find out, staying there is a massive mistake. And that, folks, is why you don't mess with owls. The island spotted skunk is one of the rarest carnivores in the wild, with their entire population restricted to 2 California Channel islands spanning across a few hundred kilometers. So seeing one in the flesh is as exciting as it gets. But these little creatures aren't just special because they're rare. No, they've got a few tricks up their sleeves too, some of which you'd never expect from an animal in the wild. Yes, they love doing handstands. In September 2013, a man set up a hunting cam in the woods to spot animals. What he ended up capturing, however, was something he'd never expected in his wildest dreams. A row of lights kept moving up and down behind the bushes, almost as if it was something alien. But more importantly, the footage was real because animals kept walking in front of the lights. That said, many people think this could possibly be some spider webs dangling in front of the camera.